If you're struggling to set up your sustainability strategy because you have limited time, limited resources, and limited budget, well, I'm showing you exactly how you can do that even with these constraints in this video. Let's dive in. To kick things off, my first strategy is to accept that you're going to be imperfectly sustainable. Let me explain. I don't think a perfectly sustainable fashion brand even exists, because if you think about it, if you wanted to be perfectly sustainable, you wouldn't even be in business, because being in business means that you're going to be emitting carbon emissions, you're going to be using electricity, you're going to be using water, you're going to be employing people, and there's just so much impact when you start a business. And so instead of trying to be perfect, which is not realistic in my opinion, you want to figure out how you can balance it. That's really what I think sustainability means. It means still being in business, still being profitable, still making sure you're paying all your employees and your garment workers a fair wage, but at the same time, making sure that you minimize your impact on the environment as much as possible. So it really is a balancing act. And just know too that sustainability is a journey. You're not going to be perfectly sustainable overnight. And so because of that, you're just going to continuously be improving, and also just be imperfectly perfect in your own way. Just know that you're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And I hope that us starting with this really helps free up some of that anxiety and that overwhelm, because I know that sometimes a lot of brands can put a lot of pressure on themselves to do it perfectly. But what I'm saying is that being perfectly sustainable just doesn't exist. So throw that idea out the window and instead try to do the best you can given your time, your resources, and your budget. And just know that it's something that you're going to continuously work on and continuously improve. And the next strategy is to pick your sustainability priorities. I always tell our clients and make them go through this prioritization exercise, because if you think about it, there's so many things wrong with the fashion industry. From the harmful materials we're using, to the unethical treatment of garment workers, to the millions and millions of tons of textile waste we are sending to the landfills, and everything in between, from microplastics to harmful dyes being leached into people's waters. It's just a lot, and there's a lot of things wrong with it. And if you go into it with the intention of trying to solve everything, you're going to become overwhelmed really quickly, and you're also going to get paralyzed, because every single decision you make will have some sort of environmental impact, and then it's going to be, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And so instead of putting yourself through all of that, pick and choose your battles when it comes to sustainability. This is so key, especially if you have limited time, limited resources, and budget, because as a brand that's either just starting out, or even if you're a smaller brand or a medium-sized brand or even a big conglomerate, you still need to pick and choose your battles, because at the end of the day, you know what you are capable of, and you are just one brand, right? Like, you're not going to be able to solve the entire industry's problems with just your brand. And so it's really important to pick and choose your priorities. When we go through this exercise with our clients, we make them choose 1 to 2 priorities, and we get them to rank all the things that I'm about to overview with you from the scale of 1 to 7. So essentially what you're going to do is pick, of all the things I'm about to overview with you, which is most important to you, and that's going to be number 1, and then which is least important, which will be number 7. So here are the 7 sustainability priorities we typically get our clients to choose from. The first one is carbon emissions. So if carbon emissions and trying to keep that low as much as possible is really important to you and your brand, then rank that as number 1. The second thing we also think about is water usage. So if you want to try to eliminate water usage as much as possible with your brand, then rank that as number 1. Another thing, of course, is going to be the treatment of garment workers. And so if you really want to make sure you're going above and beyond, you're going to mentor, develop garment workers and things like that, then rank that as number 1. Another thing as well is harmful dyes and chemicals. So if you want to reduce your brand's usage of these items, then rank that as your top choice. Another one as well is animal cruelty. So if trying to be a vegan brand and trying not to use animal byproducts and things like that is really important to you, then obviously rank that as a top choice. Additionally, we also think about plastics. And so if you don't want to use plastics in your materials, in your packaging, things like that, then rank that. And then last but not least, if trying to reduce textile waste is really, really important, then rank that. And so I know all of this is technically very, very important. However, this is a prioritization exercise. So rank everything from 1 to 7. To help you with this prioritization exercise, I do have a free sustainability ebook. In this ebook, we will have all 7 of these prioritization items, and then there will be an exercise to help you rank them. So you don't have to rapidly jot notes. You can just download that ebook at recloseted.com/sustainability. And so basically, you as a sustainable fashion brand, I know you're already going to be above average in these areas. And just because you don't rank something as number 1 or number 2 does not mean that you're not going to do anything. Because I would tell our clients, you're going to be above average in all these areas already. And what I'm simply asking you to do is to pick 1 to 2 priorities where you're going to go really above and beyond, be industry leaders, be cutting edge. And so just focus on those 1 to 2 items. However, that being said, if you didn't choose ethical production as one of your top 2, that does not mean you're not going to pay your garment workers a fair wage. It just simply means that you're not going to go super above and beyond there, beyond paying a garment worker their living wage and making sure that they're taken care of and they're in a safe working environment. It just means that maybe if you choose plastics, then you're really going to ensure that your brand doesn't use plastics at all. And that's a huge project in itself, right? And so, like I said, you have limited time, you have limited resources and limited budget, and so you need to pick and choose your priorities. And again, just because you don't prioritize something, it doesn't mean that you're going to do nothing. You're still going to be above average in all these areas anyways, but we really need to figure out what you're going to focus on. So then for every single decision you make in your business, be it what materials you're going to use, where you're going to produce your clothing, what kind of packaging you're going to use, what kind of shipping options you're going to use, you're going to filter it through with your priorities, and then that can really help you decide what you should do. Because otherwise, if you don't have these priorities, it can be really paralyzing, like I talked about at the beginning of this video. If you're trying to be perfect, you're trying to please everyone, and you don't know what you and your brand stands for. So make sure you go through the prioritization exercise. You can leverage the ebook that we have linked in the description box as well to really help you figure that out. The next strategy is to assess where you're currently at. This is really important because once you have narrowed down your priorities, you then want to figure out where the benchmark is for you as a company currently and then where you want to go. So what I would do is analyze all the materials you've gotten, where they're coming from, any certifications, things like that. Make sure you do a detailed audit of any of your factories as well if you didn't already do that. And just really make sure you know what the current state of your business's sustainability looks like. Because that way you know where you're starting from, and then you can really start to build out where you want to go. But it all starts with assessing and knowing where you are at right now. If you're getting a lot out of this video, I wanted to let you know about some additional free sustainability resources. I already mentioned our ebook, but I also have a free sustainability masterclass. You can get both of these items at recloseted.com/sustainability. And I really just want to make sure that you're equipped to easily integrate sustainability into your business. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment on this video or send us a DM at recloseted on Instagram. We are here to support you. We want to see you succeed. And now let's dive back into the video. The next strategy is to do an industry benchmark. So once you've assessed where you're at, you also want to see where the rest of the industry is at as well. And I wouldn't look at fast fashion brands and benchmark against them. I would look at other sustainable fashion brands and brands that maybe are bigger than yours and have more budget and resources and potentially more time, so that you have that North Star and you know what you're aiming towards. And so figure out in all the different areas that I've just listed from a prioritization perspective, like water uses, dyes, materials, ethical production, all those different things, what the benchmark is. And also for the 1 to 2 priorities you've chosen, you want to make sure you are really pushing yourself as well. So do some research, see where the industry is at. This is really important. Now that you know where you're at as a business, you also know where the industry is at. The next strategy is to set up your targets. It is so important to set targets for yourself because these are goals and objectives so that you know what you're working towards and where you're going. And this is really key because if you just know where you're at and where everyone else is at and you don't have a plan to improve and get better, it's just not going to get done. And so what we always recommend to our clients is to set a 6-month target, 1-year target, 2-year target, 3-year target, all the way up to 5 and 10 years. And then that way you can really assess where you're going and how you're going to get there. The key though is to set realistic yet ambitious targets. And what I mean by that is obviously you want to challenge yourself, and that's where the ambitious target comes into play. But you don't want to set targets that you know you're not going to achieve, because that won't be fun for you and also won't be fun for your team. And in fact, it might actually decrease their morale when there's so much weight on sustainability nowadays and you're setting these targets, but you know that you're not going to achieve them, and that's just not going to be very motivational or really a great experience for anyone. And so instead, set targets that are going to challenge yourselves, but also take into account the amount of resources, the amount of time, and the amount of budget you can dedicate to it. So in summary, set your targets, but make them realistic, but also ambitious. Once you have set your target, the next strategy is to develop a plan or a roadmap. So we know where you're at, we know where the industry is at, we know where you want to go. So now let's break it down and actually make detailed work back plans to figure out how you're going to get there. So for example, for your 1 to 2 priorities, if you chose plastic and water usage, then you've noticed that maybe your brand currently uses a lot of water because of the materials you've used. So maybe in the next year or so, one of the goals and the things on the roadmap is to switch up some of those materials for things that don't use as much water, like hemp, for example. And so do that research, think about it, but really make this as detailed as possible, because the more details you put in, the more likely you're going to be able to actually achieve it. And so spend a few hours or spend a few days to really sit down and think about this. And again, be realistic, right? Like take into account how much time you can actually dedicate to this, how many resources, how many team members you actually have to help you, and last but not least, how much money you have as well, because those are all technically constraints to help you achieve your goals. You just want to make sure that you can work around them so that you can be successful. And then the next strategy is to continuously improve. I talked about this a little bit at the beginning already, but sustainability is a journey. You're going to continuously be trying to do better. So just know that you're not going to reach perfection one day. You're just not going to wake up and be sustainable. So we need to continuously look at where you and your brand are at, where the industry is at, and where you're going. And we need to continuously iterate. So make sure you are always monitoring your progress, and you are not just having the roadmap and the target set up and then have it collect dust on a shelf. This is stuff you need to continuously reference. You need to continuously talk about it with your team as well and have it at the forefront of everyone's mind. If you got a lot out of this video, friendly reminder that you can take it to the next level with our free sustainability resources. We have an amazing ebook and we have a great masterclass. You can snag both of these at recloseted.com/sustainability. If you enjoyed this video, I also think you would get a lot out of my sustainability best practices video. Watch that if you haven't already, and together, let's transform the harmful fashion industry.